Hey squad, welcome to podcast day, week 60 of the Virtus Performance Podcast. Before I get stuck into today's episode, I'm sitting here with my good friend Simon Cooper. We've got some Binaural Beats study music on in the background. If anyone sits down and reads or works or studies for an extended period of time and you're not getting on the binaural beats, then I would highly recommend it. Today's episode, we're basically going to sit down, have a chat, talk some rubbish, bit of a shoot the shit podcast. We don't really have a plan or direction. We're just going to talk about some stuff that's been happening. If you enjoyed this episode or you have been enjoying these kind of random thoughts episodes in the past, please let us know. Show us, give us some feedback, throw some topics at us, and we'll attack them and have a crack and see if we can learn some stuff. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. My personal and business goal is to be just a little bit better every day. I believe everyone, especially normal people, have a story to tell. The Virtus podcast exists to help us all find small ways of consistent improvement by discussing the journey and experiences of each of our guests. How are you, mate?
G'day.
What's happening?
How are you?
Good, mate. Very, very good. Just it's been a pretty cruisy day.
It has. Up in Sydney.
What are we here for?
So we are here for a mastermind event, sort of like a conference being run by our business coaches, our mentors at the Alchemy Institute.
If you're a business owner or a gym owner, get around them. They've helped significantly.
Yeah. So just a week, well, a couple of days of learning, meeting some cool people, and just filling our cup, I guess.
Yeah,
doing some stuff for us.
Yeah, it's a good chance to. Someone asked me the other day, like, why I feel I get so much benefit out of these couple of days, and I was thinking that it's because I get to get out of our normal environment and get out of our kind of echo chamber and out of the normality that is work. Even though I'm spending 2 days kind of deep into thinking and talking about work, it's a whole different environment and I'm in a whole different mindset.
Yeah, it's a different perspective, I suppose. Taking a step out of the business and looking at it almost objectively, and seeing what areas we can work on, what needs improvement, what are some things that we can start to implement to improve the experience of everyone in the gym and I guess add more value.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of important for me to identify how much I actually enjoy being out of the environment. Like, don't get me wrong, love the environment, but it's really easy for us to get stuck into the rat race, for lack of a better term, or the cycle of waking up, doing your thing, going to work, getting home, having dinner, doing whatever you're doing, then going to bed and then repeat. Like, especially this time of the year, middle of winter, it's cold and everyone's not quite as happy as they usually are because there's no vitamin D, so you get stuck into that.
Sun just makes everything better, right?
The sun does make everything better. If you're not having your vitamin D supplements, get on it. Probably important this time of the year.
Need your fill. Yeah, totally. And we're sort of coming into the time where we're starting to think about what's next for leading into the warmer weather, leading into summer. Days are getting a bit longer, I suppose.
Yeah, we're almost at the stage, like with work, with Virtus, where it's like, well, shit, what's next? One of the areas of my life I'm really trying to put a lot of thought into is kind of being really happy with where I'm at, which I am. but also thriving for more and figure out what that actually is and what that looks like.
Yeah.
And for me, that more isn't necessarily more things or more money or anything like that. Like it's all around like more connection, more fulfillment, more freedom to kind of spend the days and the weeks kind of doing things that do fill my cup like this.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting talking to some of the other business owners that are real fresh in their business and don't have a team behind them or things like that, and like they've always had to like shut the doors for 2 days to come up to Sydney. So we're in a pretty fortunate position that Mitch, Jess and Cam and Katie and Mum and the others are all able to keep the ship afloat while we're up here.
Definitely. It's funny being in there, and I still consider Virtus a young business, and we're still growing and we're still kind of finding our feet. But talking to some of these guys who are like one of these guys we met today, he hadn't even opened his doors yet.
Yeah, it's insane.
So it's funny talking to these guys, and they're asking us for our opinions and what our thoughts are on certain things that they consider maybe us as experts at.
Which is a scary thing to comprehend, but I guess it's like very quickly you go from being like a new business, which is like maybe 0 to 6 months old. Like I still feel like we're a new business as well, but now we're coming up on 3 years in October, and Mum sent me a photo from like 2 years ago today, and she's like, she just sent me the photo and didn't say anything. I said, "Wow, that's gone quick," and she said, "That's exactly what I was thinking." So it's pretty cool to look back like that.
What is the biggest couple of changes been since maybe that 1 year mark, coming up to this 3 year mark? In, let's say, in the business end, for you personally.
The biggest changes, it feels like it's gone like that. Like it feels like was 2 days ago. Like I still remember like our first like birthday party and little things like that. Biggest changes, I think, is just the importance for me of like I feel like I'm an adult now. It's a weird way of putting it, but when we hit that first year, like a couple of weeks before our first birthday party, I moved into a first house with KP, which we're still living in. There you go, 2 years, and we've upgraded the laundry almost. So we're getting there. Huzzah. But like I went into that, obviously became a sole director and had to run the team, and made the decision 12 months on to move away from VFL footy, and like so I've kind of it's been 2 years of making not necessarily the easy decision, but the hard decision that I know are right, and kind of trying. Like I'm always gonna fuck around and be a kid and take the piss out of most of the things I do, but trying to take that more, I don't know if mature is the right word, but more calculated approach with a lot of things. Like
I think it's definitely a mature thing to see something as something that you really want to do, but saying no, taking a step back and doing what's best for not just yourself but for the business and the employees and the members in the business. Well that's it. Like I guess I've had the responsibility at the start, but it was more all around like, oh, let's have a crack, whatever happens. Like if we fuck up and it doesn't work, then we've lost a bit of money, but that's it. But like now all of the decisions that we make are ultimately like have the responsibility of having 10 staff whose livelihood kind of rest on Virtus in certain ways, shapes, or different ways. And then you've got 100 or so consistent clients that I guess rely on us to provide a service which hopefully is the best part of their day. And then
to have to deal with all of the extra added pressures. I don't know, pressure's the right word. Just extra things that you've got to deal with, like paying a mortgage and maintaining a relationship and
all the life stuff,
friendships and all of those kind of things. Like, it adds up pretty quick, and I'm the last person that's ever going to say there's not enough time in the day, because everyone gets 168 hours, but it's or week in a week. But I think it's really easy to get stuck into that mindset and start like, the poor me kind of thing, rather than it's just, I've got these hours and I've got all of the situations that will be presented with me each day, and it's just how I deal with it that will determine where I get to. But there's definitely a lot more planning now, a lot more strategy, and trying to identify, okay, this is where we've been, this is where we are now, and this is where we want to get to.
Which is the exciting stuff.
Yeah, like going through some of the numbers stuff today.
Yeah,
it's kind of like tracking where we're at, 6-12 months ago, and where we're at now, and being able to see decent growth, which is a cool thing. Like,
sure.
I'm definitely not a numbers person, but being able to look at those numbers and go, oh, cool. Like, I can see trends with, when I had a week off to do something like this, or if I had, my big trip where I had 7 weeks off, how it affected the business, and what kind of levers next time, if I was to do something similar, I might need to push or pull to, mitigate some of those changes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think, and that's like things that we can sort of start planning for moving forward, like anticipating the ups and downs of memberships and cash flow and all that other business stuff.
Yeah, I just put it like in my brain. It's like in the business stuff. Like, someone's like, what do you do with your day? I'm like, well, I coach in the mornings, I go have coffee, and then I deal with the business stuff for a couple of hours, and then I might, edit some podcasts, like upload some podcast stuff. And like, whoa, what do you mean by the business stuff? I'm like, I don't know, all the spreadsheets and numbers and profit and loss and payroll and, tax.
Tax.
All that stuff. I don't know. So it's really interesting to see how my days have changed slightly, but it's more around like what my intention is for that day. And I've kind of felt personally I've been in a little bit of a slump for like the last maybe 5-6 weeks without really realizing it, or without it being a big slump. It was just kind of like, I find it most of the time, I find it really easy to sit down and talk about what's going well, what's not, where are we headed, what do we want to get to. Yeah. But over the last couple of weeks, I've just been like, no, I don't really know what I need to do.
I think that I find that sometimes. I like assessing what's gone well, assessing what hasn't been gone well.
Yeah.
I like looking forward and creating strategy and looking at the vision and discussing ways in which we can add value and decide where we want to be in 12 months. But it's the present, which we sometimes almost neglect. Yeah. Like we strategize and plan as much as we want, but if we're not like ticking the legs over day to day, if we're not doing the small things that are going to get us to where we want to be, then it's not going to happen.
And they're just like those little fill your cup things, right? Like,
well, even like work-wise. If I'm not creating content to put on the blog, or if I'm not posting things in the Verse family, then that stuff's just not going to get done. Yeah. Which isn't, mate, that's a simple thing to say. Like, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. Yeah, of course, but that means we're not going to be growing and moving forward.
Yeah, and it's one of Drew, who was presenting today, one of his things he says, which is one of my favourites, is it's really easy to do it, but it's really easy not to. Yeah. And it's like with all of those little areas of our life, like whether it's been that extra little bit of time with KP, or that 2 minutes before I leave the house in the morning, like making the bed, or cleaning up the desk, or whatever it is after a meeting. Like, it's it's really easy to do it, but it's really easy not to. And when you get stuck in the habit of not doing it, it becomes easier and easier to not do it. Definitely. And it becomes harder and harder to actually do it. So it's like...
I caught myself the other day. I was about to walk out of our room, and I noticed the bed wasn't made. I was like, the bed's not made. Like, it's fine. And I was about to walk out the door, and I was like, no, got to do the bed.
You could.
Like,
you did it?
Yeah, of course I did.
Attaboy. Well, that's like one of the,
like
one
the
of the
small
things,
the small standards that you need to uphold.
Yeah, and like you can uphold the standards every day for a year, and then not do it for a week, and you've kind of like fallen off the wagon. Like it's a really simple thing. Like one of the things I don't do, I maybe do once a week, is make the bed. Like because I'm up early. Yeah, true. I'll jump out of bed, tuck KP in, and leave, and then. You know, Sundays might be the day where KP's up before me, or a Thursday. Actually, it's always Thursday because that's my sleeping day, where I'll get up maybe half an hour after KP. Yeah. And Thursday night, it's always, you didn't make the bed again. I'm like, shit, I've got to sort that out.
Gosh darn it.
It's one of those, what's the opposite of a habit? It's a non-habit. Like it's a thing that, because I don't do it often, I forget about it. Yeah. I'm sure there's a technical term. But you know, on that like little wins and goal setting thing, like one of the things we try and celebrate with our clients is the importance of setting those little wins and little goals. Yeah. And like I know you just read the book The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, which
great read, highly recommend.
A bunch of people have suggested to it. What was the main, like we watched a couple of little YouTube videos on that last night. What was your main takeaway from that book?
I'll give you a brief rundown of what it was about first, and I'll give you my biggest takeaway. So, actually, I'll give you a bit of a context as well. So, I finished reading *Sapiens*, another fantastic book.
Shout out! Don't have a shout out, Bell. We're in Sydney. Damn it!
Finished reading *Sapiens*, which is all about. It's a brief history of mankind from when we evolved from apes to the present time, and about how culture evolved and we introduced money and language and religion and all these different factors that define our society now. So that was about how culture was developed. Code of the Extraordinary Mind was about how to break free of these old dogmatic beliefs. That,
great use of the word dogmatic.
Thanks, mate. That are essentially not valid anymore, or they're just not. What's the word I'm trying to? They're extinct. So it's about how to form your own beliefs, tread your own path, and it's fantastic. It goes through about how to set goals the right way, about how to not attach your happiness to goals, about how to not delay happiness.
But it's about how to not,
now.
Like that video was talking about how to not attach your happiness to like big audacious goals, but attach your happiness to like little achievable goals, right? And
almost attach your happiness to the feelings that these goals bring. Well, that's not the physical goal itself. Like if my goal was to own a Ferrari, I'm not going to attach my happiness to own the Ferrari. I want to attach my happiness to the feeling of accomplishment of earning it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that can be brought about in other ways, not just by owning the Ferrari. It can be like buying a new book, or like
what makes you feel
something else.
Like most accomplished, like in day to day. Like I don't mean, you know, in 30 years when you got a family and you got lots of little Coops and little Sallians running around.
Shout out to us.
Shout out to
lovely Sallian. What makes you feel most accomplished? I think doing what I set out to do, or achieving what I set out to accomplish or achieve that day. I've got so every day I do my journaling in the morning. I set out my minimums, which are my minimum expectations or standards that I want to accomplish every day. And these are just small things that I know that if I tick that box, then it will mean I'm moving towards being the best version of myself that day.
Yeah.
So drinking 3 litres of water, eating 3 good quality meals, having a cold shower in the morning, journaling, all this little stuff which by the end of the day, if I've ticked off, usually I probably tick off about 6 or 7.
Yeah.
If I know that I've done that, then that's a win for me.
Yeah. If you don't hit all of them, do you feel like you failed, or you just like you feel?
I don't feel like I've failed. I mean, if I hit all 10, that's a perfect day.
Yeah.
And that means that I've taken time out of my day to hit all these things.
So what's a win for you? Is it 6, 7?
To be honest, I don't even set a win or a loss to these.
Yeah, cool.
It's just these are the things that made me to do. If I don't hit them, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because some days I'm not going to hit them. Some days, if I'm flat out at uni or if I'm flat out working, then I might not have the opportunity to have a good quality lunch, or I might not have time to have a nap if I've not slept very well the night before.
Yeah.
And someone that we both follow, Alex Sharfin, calls that failing gracefully, and that's setting these big goals and falling short of them, but being okay with it.
Yeah.
And normally I'm not okay with that, I suppose. I want to achieve the things that I set out to achieve.
Yeah.
That's the purpose.
But you're
of
okay
having
with it
a
on those
goal.
daily goals.
Yeah, these daily things are just little things that are bonuses, nearly.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's like, that failing gracefully thing's kind of, it's something I've resonated with really heavily, because it's a little area of my life that I always like overshoot, or I overset goals.
Yeah.
So I always try to
definitely
do too much in too short a time. Like, say it's, I want to grow our Vertus family by 50 members over the next 6 months. We're in 50 members, 6 months. That's a lot of new members. But if I kind of go, well, if I can help improve all the members we've got, then add 2 a month for the next 6 months, then there's well over 50 members that we're looking after, and then that's much more achievable one. And it's not like I'm lowering my standards. We're still helping just as many people, but it's making sure that the way I talk to myself around that goal is positive, and it's going to reinforce that positive behaviour. Or it's like, I want to read 100 books this year, but I get through 60, I've failed because I'm like 40 books short. But if I set it as, like, even though I'm 40 books short, I've still read 60 books.
Yeah.
But I'm probably not going to feel as good as if I said, you know what, I'm going to read 40 books this year.
Exactly.
And then hit 60, like, far out, that was a cool year.
Yeah. That's actually one of the goals. So when I was away, I was in Bali recently, and it was sort of a good opportunity for me to reassess on the goals that I set out at the start of the year. Sort of midway through 2018, thought I would just sort of assess where I was at and reset any goals that I needed to. Yeah. And reading books was actually one of them. I think I wanted to hit 26 books, so one every 2 weeks. Yeah. And I think I was just short of halfway there, but realised that I wasn't going to hit it, and that made me reassess, aim a bit lower, and I'm still going to try and hit that 26. Yeah. But if I don't, then that's fine. Like, I'll
picture books, mate.
Picture books.
Just load up on like the Hungry Caterpillar. It's a classic.
Favourite.
The Rainbow Fish, I think it's called. That was a pretty good one. Yeah. Spot.
Rainbow Serpent, I'm thinking.
Oh, that's there's a Rainbow Fish one, isn't there?
Rainbow Fish, I know that one you're talking about.
What else we got?
Ooh.
Those are all the picture books in my
I'm not sure.
memory at the
I
moment.
wanted to dig out the...
When did you start loving reading?
I loved reading primary school.
Because I know you froth on it now.
Yeah, I used to froth on it big time.
Yeah.
Like, I would get home from school and sit on the couch. This is like Harry Potter era.
Awesome.
Sit on the couch and just read until dinner time, and then
That's awesome.
go to bed and read more.
That's ace.
And then probably when I started uni, I sort of lost, or maybe even like towards the end of high school. Yeah. Sort of maybe I didn't lose the love for it, but I just lost the routine of reading regularly. Yeah. And I think with uni as well, we're always reading and studying for for uni.
For another purpose, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not... takes the fun out of it maybe a little bit. But probably in England,
Did you go to England?
Yeah, I went to England. Look, that's another story for another time. but I sort of found the love for it again.
Yeah.
Loaded up on a few books, and then coming back here as well. With you obviously diving in has been a big catalyst as well.
Yeah, I've got that addictive personality where I like something and then decide to do all of it.
Yeah.
Let's
do
hope
all of the books.
Yeah. Let's hope I never jump onto heroin because I'll be in trouble. Shit. But I think I don't know. The book thing is kind of interesting because I fell out of love with it for a long period of time, and then I reckon when I was maybe early. I was about to say like early before teens. What's that when you're like 5 to 10?
5 to 10?
Yeah. Late single digits. When I was late single digits. back in the day.
Is there even a word for that?
No. I don't know. I think I'm making stuff up. I need to read more books. But I remember Nana got me onto... she was an English teacher, was. She's a teacher, so she... had a heap of books at her place, and every time we'd go visit her and Pa, she'd either give us a couple or we'd read them, and that's kind of like my earliest memory of loving books. Like I remember Enid Blyton books. Good. I used to love when I was a kid.
The Faraway Tree?
Faraway Tree, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. One of my earliest memories of reading was in grade 2. So our teacher would read The Faraway Tree.
That's cool.
In front of us, and then... because I love reading so much, I volunteered to get up and read in front of the class.
Oh, what a kid.
Yeah.
Nerd.
That was... Teacher's pet.
That's super cool, though.
But, yeah, that's like one of my earliest memories of reading. And, like, being comfortable reading and just, like, voluntarily getting up and doing it.
I was... like, when I was a kid, I was always really good at English. Like, I don't know whether I would have been anyway, but it was, like, apart from PE... it was always my favourite subject. Like English
throughout high school.
Throughout primary school and high school. Like, cool. And I reckon that's because I used to read so much when I was a kid. So you just like comprehension comes to you naturally when you're reading.
Definitely.
At every extra second that you have. Yeah. And then I kind of high school we obviously had the books we had to read. And I did like advanced English and all that kind of stuff. But it probably wasn't until a couple of years ago where I'm like, I've got to get back into reading. Bought a couple of books, never read them. And then, I don't know, something just clicked. At the end of last year, I was just, middle of the end of last year, I was just like, got to start reading again.
Do you know what it was that made you...
I don't know, I've always been like pretty hungry for learning. Yeah. To learn. And I guess, obviously through high school and through... Look, like Mum would probably say I wasn't hungry to learn in high school, which is fair enough. I was probably more worried about footy and stuff, and then
priorities, right?
Yeah, and then uni was probably fairly similar. Like I learnt cool stuff, but would get most of my like interesting learning done on either YouTube or like training or bodybuilding books. Yeah, and then obviously uni finished, dove into the business world and read a few books about business, and then middle of last year was probably like my 18-month anniversary of like listening to a lot of like Joe Rogan podcasts and diving into long form storytelling and conversation that way. Yeah. So I think that was probably like a stepping stone to get me back into reading, and then like I've just gone stupid the last 6 months. But. Yeah, I don't know. It's cool because it's like forces me to have time where I'm not thinking. I'm like, even though you're thinking and reading and learning, you're not stuck in your head and you're not scrolling Facebook and you're not worried about the things you're not doing. You're just immersed in a story. Or
do you read that many fictional books?
I go through stages of like reading some either load up on like personal development for a period of time, then it might be load up on, and it's funny because like all personal development books are all about like how you can help other people and how you can make an impact. So the word personal development is really interesting,
It's almost how do you stimulate as much growth for you, which then allows you to give back to others.
Because people think of like personal development as like self-help, whereas it's just like, well, why wouldn't you want to improve yourself?
Like, I don't know why there's a stigma.
There's almost like a stigma around it. I don't know, it's really interesting. But then I'll go through like some business books and I'll dive into them, and I'm getting better at kind of knowing what I feel like reading. Like,
cool.
I had like a month where I'd pretty much just solely read like autobiographies. So
nice.
Which I guess you could say is both personal development and business kind of combined. Because most of the guys' books I'm reading are like business owners, but now I've jumped into like George Orwell. And
so what are you reading now?
I'm reading 1984, George Orwell, which is a heavy book.
What a read!
It's a I'm only like 100 pages in, but it's it's one of those books that I think most people read at school that we didn't do it at school.
I think I did that. Must have been year 12. Well, year 11,
it seems like the kind of book that would be a VCE book, not a middle school book.
We read Animal Farm in year 10, I think.
Nice. Yeah, see, I read that a month and a half ago, and that was a really interesting look at, I guess, power and how it changes your beliefs and desires and things like that.
It's a cool like little history book as well, really. 'Cause it's about like the Cold War, right?
Yeah.
Like communists, free world almost.
Yeah, it is, and it's about for me, it's about the importance of like knowing what you set out to do in the first place, and obviously there's some of the same themes kind of carry across into 1984, but it's all around like how easy it is to get indoctrinated into a system where you don't necessarily believe in it, but then you almost like forget or lose what you thought beforehand. Like
it becomes the new normal.
New normal. Like obviously I only started reading this book a couple of days ago, but because I'm currently juggling 2 books, which is against my rule, but I'm doing it anyway, so deal with it. But I was thinking yesterday, and it's just like, this is like how people get stuck in situations where they aren't necessarily happy or they're not thriving because they just get used to doing something that they kind of don't like, and then they just get used to it, and it becomes new normal. Whether it's a job you don't like, or like friendship that's not serving you anymore, or a relationship or something like that. Like it's really easy to get stuck into it or get stuck in it, and not pull yourself out.
Yeah, definitely. That's it. That's what the Code of the Extraordinary Mind touches on as well.
Yeah,
about how these outdated beliefs may not be serving you anymore, or they've been taught to you, or they've been introduced into your life because it's just been passed down from parents and friends in school, and
everyone's doing their best, right? But like, I find now when you get to like mid-20s and like rolling into the second half of my 20s now, like you start to realise that no one's got a fucking clue what they're doing. Everyone's like kind of thinks they know what they're doing, but at the end of the day, like everyone's just having a crack and trying to do the right thing. And
that's the thing as well. Like, there's only so much that you can change or question.
Yeah.
Like, this is a thought that occurred to me earlier. Like, we were sort of talking about schooling before. Listening to a talk about schooling, and like the question that I asked was, do you think schooling will ever change from what it is now? Like, will high school, for example, ever be voluntary, or like the systems that govern our society now are so set in stone? Like we go to school when we're 6 years old
because it's what we've always done.
Exactly.
We've done,
and it's so outrageous to even think that it can be changed. Go to school when we're 6 until we're 18 years old, and then we either go into university or go into a job.
Yeah.
And then we work at that job until we're 60 years old, and then we retire.
Get a gold watch.
Get your gold watch. And then you're in your twilight years, and you, like, I don't know, do the things that you wish you'd done when you were 20.
Buy a caravan, drive around a bit.
Yeah.
Die. I don't know, that part of life scares the hell out of me. In terms of, or that maybe not that part of life, but that path.
That path scares me.
Yeah.
It scares me that we might go through life without doing things that we wanted to do. Or living a life that was predetermined by us, and we didn't have any say into how we...
Yeah. You got to think there's like... the whole like... Oh, that's just a cliche kind of thing that comes up. But I'm like, well, cliches are cliches for a reason. So we've got to have followed these paths or this path for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's because it's easiest or because, obviously you're like early 20s or like late teens, you're like, I'm never going to settle down, like I'm never going to have kids and stuff like that. And then like your priorities and your thought patterns and things like that change when you get older, and you're like, oof, maybe I do want kids now. Like maybe I do want to settle down and get a white picket fence and, buy a Range Rover and, go to the beach on Saturdays and things like that. Like maybe that does become what you want. So it's really easy to sit here at 26 and
definitely
kind of look at it and go, well, I don't want any of that, but maybe I'll get to 32 and just want a couple of kids and just want to settle down and do that. But then again, maybe I won't. But back on the school thing, like it's really easy just to do things because that's the way they're done.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to dive into the topic because nowhere near
haven't had enough red wine yet.
Nowhere near intelligent enough to actually think about it properly. But I've dived into a little bit of like stuff on free will over the last like couple of months. I read Sam Harris's book, Free Will, and listened to a few debates. Between like Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson and
those guys,
Richard Dawkins, and a few of those guys, and it's really cool to hear, I guess, intellectuals discuss free will. And one of Christopher Hitchens' quotes that he said in one of the debates, I'll never forget. It's just like, well, I always get asked the free will question, but whether or not I believe in it, I don't have a choice. And then, like it's really interesting because cool. I try and look at it as we don't have free will because, and they've done studies that show that our brain reacts to a decision before we actually make the decision.
Interesting.
So we actually have that impulse that shows what we're going to do before we actually consciously know. So it's like, well, how much of it is actually free will? So I tend to believe that there isn't free will, but we have a bandwidth where we can still make decisions. So
I agree with that. I think like coming back to like society's path that's already been laid out for us. That's the life that we are probably going to live. And like you said, we have there's boundaries to how far we can push that, I guess. And we can choose, we can make certain decisions of what that path is going to look like, but we're still going to end it up in the same spot. I
look at it like one of those choose your own adventure, like Goosebumps books.
Good.
So like this is an analogy that I started writing it like a little article on, but it confused me too much to actually keep going. But so basically, like our life is like a choose your own adventure Goosebumps book. You're eventually going to get to the end, you're going to die, and whatever happens after that, who knows. But on the way, like all of your available decisions are already made for you. You just have to choose, whether it's option A, B, or C. But you do that, obviously a Goosebumps book, you've got a finite amount of times you can do it. But in life, you've got still a finite amount of times, but significantly more than if you're reading a book. So every day you kind of, do you go through door 1, door 2, door 3 repeatedly over and over for your whole life, and all of those decisions.
But do you think even those decisions are predetermined by the path that we've led up to that point?
Yeah, 100%. Like Sapiens, the book Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari that you mentioned before is one that kind of solidified that idea in my head that so many traits, character traits and personality traits and things that we feel as though make us who we are determined by like human history. And the reason why we do certain things and we act certain ways and we say certain things and we believe certain things are because that was what was determined a couple 100,000 whatever years ago.
It's like in our DNA almost. That
well, it is like it is like it's 5 million. How many million years have humans been around? 500 million years or something? I don't know. I have like humans, single-celled organisms, whatever. We're all fish, by the way. We watched a cool little TED talk last night on that we're all fish. So Google that. What are we talking about?
About DNA. About predetermined paths.
Like one of the things that was really interesting was, and I'm going to butcher this. I'm going to get it wrong, but one of the rulers of Rome, it might have been Caesar, might have been Marcus Aurelius, I can't even remember, but they decide it was his decision to make Christianity like the
Constantine.
Was it Constantine? There you go. It was his decision to make Christianity the overarching.
The year 300.
Tell me you know that. Yeah, 300. Yeah, good. So 300 AD, he decided to make Christianity the ruling religion, right? Mm-hmm. So if that wasn't a decision made by a single person in one single year at one point in time, then every year after that would have been different in some way. Like it's almost
that's a bizarre thought.
The butterfly effect on a historical scale.
Definitely.
Where so it's but then it like makes you think, okay, so everything up from single-celled organism to now has got us to here. So what are the things that we can do as humans to slightly alter the future for everyone else?
Like create that ripple.
Yeah. If someone and like that's one of the millions of examples, but if someone can make a decision like that to change the course of human history for a grand statement, like
that's the thing. We don't know if the actions that we take today will have that impact.
Yeah.
We could, I don't know, we could attend a rally in support for women's rights or something, and that could be the biggest deciding factor in laws that change and then change how society is governed like in 100 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. Things like that. I guess we can't underestimate the small small actions that we take day to day.
Yeah, and it's that like whole insignificance argument, like whether we're just part of a giant web or a giant machine, or whether we're actually
we're in a simulation.
We're in a simulation, maybe. If Elon Musk is correct, and if he could stop calling people pedophiles, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's a bit rude.
Not important though. Not important to the
off topic
to what we're talking about. But I don't know, if you're going to be an eccentric billionaire who's trying to take us to Mars, own it. Got to say some things to some people to piss them off, maybe. How bloody cool was that cave rescue, by the way?
Amazing. I thought it was going to have a not very happy ending.
Yeah, it seemed that way.
They somehow did it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure everyone listening would not have lived under a rock, pun intended, for a couple for a couple of weeks. Too soon. It would not have lived under a rock for a couple of weeks, and to see you like that, didn't you? To see I don't know, hundreds of people get together to formulate a way to rescue those 13 Thai kids out of the cave was pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
And pretty amazing how like we talk about Constantine making a big decision, like that the Australian doctor who's also a diver who made a decision to go and help.
Yeah.
Because I was reading
I think there were 2 Australians that went over, wasn't
there? 2 over. They went over together. They were planning a trip to the Nullarbor or something like that. So they were literally 45 minutes away from leaving, and they got the call to jump on a plane and
That's sick.
and head over, and then for them to kind of oversee the health of the kids while the Thai and British and Australian Navy SEALs and all the divers figured out a way to get them out was pretty cool.
That sort of restores your faith in humanity a little bit. That
it's
people
like,
can set aside.
Good job, humans.
Yeah. I mean, people are inherently good, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Like, some people are just cunts. Put that on a t-shirt.
Strong language for a Thursday evening.
Yeah, but I agree. Like some like majority of the population just are trying to do their best.
Yeah.
With the hand they've been dealt to make the best of of a situation, whether it's good or bad or whatever.
I think even people who make bad decisions, or people who are, I was going to say evil, but evil is a strong word.
What constitutes a bad decision, though? Like,
well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, it could be in the service of something good.
Yeah.
Like, someone might rob a grocery store to feed their family. Like, it's a crime. Yeah. But
they're doing it for a bigger purpose.
To serve other people.
Yeah. Then you wonder like how many decisions were made, or how many reactions or actions were taken to lead to that point.
Yeah.
Like you hear, because you never hear about the little things that led to that. You hear about the person taking outrageous action to justify the means. But do you think something like that, the ends justifies the means? Like if you're doing it for family or whatever.
I don't think it's my place to say, really. I haven't experienced those sort of hardships that would force me to those extreme measures. I feel for those people, and I think if I was in their shoes, then maybe I'd do something similar. But at the same time, we live in a society. We live in a community where we're governed by these rules and laws that dictate how we have to behave. And if we break those laws or break those rules, then we have to pay the consequences for that.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. Like.
Yeah, but
unless we
didn't necessarily sign up for it.
No, but unless we all question those rules as a collective, then they're not going to change.
Yeah, it's like to go back to Sapiens. It's like, well, all these things we've just kind of agreed on.
Yeah, they're just collective figments of our imagination.
Yeah, like money doesn't have any value.
No, it's a bit of paper with something printed on it.
Yeah, but unless if enough people agree that it holds value, then it's going to hold value. Like,
that's how currency fluctuates.
Yeah,
because people decide how much this is worth. Yeah, this bit of paper is worth.
Yeah, exactly. So it's then it becomes one of those things where it depends on, like, it's environmental just as much as it's consequential on whatever's actually happening. So those rules are rules until they're not. Like, look at medical marijuana being legalized in so many states in the US, and just like, why does it have the need to be legalized? Well, because at some point people decided that this is bad, this is evil, and decided that we didn't want it or didn't need it, or so it's
damn 60s.
The bloody 60s. Well, but then like you look at that whole alcohol's a drug thing. Well, yeah, it is, and it was also illegal, and then they changed their mind. So like, honestly, alcohol
was it
the prohibition?
Of course,
alcohol in the 20s.
Right.
Like, I don't know. So it's really interesting.
Why did they decide that alcohol was was allowed to become legal, and then things like marijuana and psychedelics and things were banned?
Good question. I'm just Googling why it ended.
Good.
So alcohol prohibition was from 1920 to 1933. So for 13 years, alcohol
was this just in the US?
Was illegal. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it was in Australia. I don't think so.
Australians wouldn't allow that sort of thing.
What brought prohibition to the end?
Well, the 30s. That would have been just before the start of
amendment to the
World War
Constitution. Yeah, that was 39 though. That's not going to happen in 6 years. Mate, we can get 2.5. We can get 2.5 Olympics in.
1.5 Olympics, mate.
Mississippi ended prohibition in 1966.
Really?
There you go. Fun fact. Right. How prohibition was repealed.
Cool.
So just because it was unpopular by the looks of things. So that's really interesting because then obviously like in the 60s when like Nixon Nixon decided to ban like all of those drugs.
In the 60s, Timothy Leary, who was like one of the founding fathers of psychedelics, Richard Nixon called him the most dangerous man in America or the world?
In America. Yeah.
It's wild.
And like psychedelics then were obviously shown to help with a variety of different mental illnesses and things like that. And obviously now they're, 1999 they started kind of resurfacing in the literature, and then 2006 there was a couple of studies, and now they're being used in treatment for things like depression and anxiety and addiction, and it's it's pretty crazy that like because they're just substances, right? They're just compounds that we call certain things and use for certain things that them in itself aren't evil. They're just
not understood.
Understood, yeah. They're just used for different purposes. Like we look at coffee and it's like, well, this is the greatest thing in the world. Yeah. But all it is a chemical compound that our body reacts to a certain way. So so it's really interesting. Like there was with the cave story that we were talking about before. Like the kids were sedated, and reports have said they were sedated with ketamine. And everyone's like this massive uproar around ketamine being used on kids. It's horse tranquilizer. Well, well, yes, maybe it's used to tranquilize horses in some aspects, but then it's also used as an anesthetic in other aspects. And there's also
used in like warfare in like medical toolkits for soldiers.
Yeah, and it's used to starting to being used to treat depression and as well. So I don't know. It's really interesting to see the legalization of these things that were just decided by certain governments or certain people to be evil. See it starting to have a new kind of light to it. Because I don't know that stuff interests me a lot because obviously like one of the books I'm reading at the moment now is How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan, and like Michael Pollan's one of the most influential authors of all time, and he's written all these books around food and how food's processed and different ways of eating and things like that. And to have someone who's I guess respected and revered like that jump onto the psychedelics train, like it kind of makes you take notice a little bit. Definitely. Like obviously a lot of the people that I look up to, like guys like Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss and Aubrey Marcus, have kind of been banging on about it for a little while, and I have been like as anti-drugs as they come for most of my life, but then you kind of start to question like why and like what is constituted as a drug, and it's kind of like that line between legal and illegal is really interesting to me because it's alcohol obviously was illegal, and then maybe in 20 years we'll look at alcohol prohibition, and alcohol is probably one of the most dangerous drugs out there because it's abused so much. And is that because it's illegal? Because it is legal, maybe, but is it because it's, you know, a consumable product that's marketed to the nth degree, maybe, like, or is it just because, like anything, you've got to tailor your use to suit what it is you're taking? Like, you know, one could argue that rather than alcohol being one of the worst drugs for you, like Mars bars are the worst drugs.
Sugar.
Look, to be honest, no, I was just trying to think of a consumable product. But if I eat Mars bars every day for the next 10 months, like only Mars bars, or if I have a beer every day for the next 10 months, which one do you think is going to have a worse outcome? Like, I'm not going to be in great nick.
Either way.
But, like, I wonder if your body could survive on just Mars bars. My guess would be yes. It's just fat in it.
There's just no protein. Like, micronutrients.
No. Maybe my hair would fall out, but I think it'd be okay. Yeah. I don't know. But it's an interesting one, right? Like how what's our definition of a drug in this day and age where more and more of what we call illicit substances, with quotation marks, are becoming legal, and there's more and more studies coming out showing that they have potential to be used as treatment for like mental illness and other disorders. One of the things that I remember, I used to love Dr. Carl. It was probably my first podcast I got into, was Dr. Carl. So shout out to the great man if he's listening. One of the things I remember him saying in one of his podcasts was, everything is a poison, what matters is the dose. So obviously, whether it's a drug or whether it's a poison, whatever, like cyanide, there's cyanide in apples.
Is it really?
Tiny little bit. Like, you know, we can overdose on water. Like little things like that where you kind of, it checks your belief system, or I guess like assumptions that you make about certain things, where it's okay, well, maybe this thing isn't good or bad, or it's indifferent, because what matters is how we actually utilize it. And like one of the things that it's kind of been really interesting to me over the last couple of months has been the use of things like psychedelics for I guess spiritual use rather than like medical use. Like one of the papers that I remember Michael Pollard talked about in his book was, I think it was called, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but it was called Psilocybin Can Occasion Mystical Type Experiences Having Substantial and Sustained Personal Meaning and Spiritual Significance. And like that was like a double-blind, placebo-controlled like study from like 2006. So it's legit. By Roland something. I can't remember the guy's name. I only put the book down part of the book down yesterday, so I really should remember that. But Roland Griffiths, I think. Anyway, not important.
Take your word for it.
No one's going to know who that is unless you read the book. But obviously, them talking about doing it in a controlled setting and with like synthetic psilocybin, and how those kind of mystical experiences or spiritual experiences or whatever way you want to actually like look at it, how it can actually improve someone's life or improve someone's quality of life by changing the way they think.
Spirituality is a funny one, because there's even a Sapiens touches on this as well, but there's a growing movement toward being spiritual rather than religious. And being spiritual doesn't mean that you believe in a higher power or you believe in religion itself, but I don't even know what would you describe as spirituality, like being spiritual. It's like you have I don't know if understanding is the right word, but you have an appreciation for what you don't know. Or what can't be known. Or for the potential of the human mind and like, you know, obviously having seen or heard people
that I respect talk about these subjects. Like you listen to Tim Ferriss or Michael Pollard or Ray Marcus or Joe Rogan, like talk about their experiences, and it's like they can't even put it into words, and the words they use is just like love and connection and all those kind of things. And it's just like, well, how much extra is out there that we don't actually know about? And you know, one of the books that I was telling you about before, it's called Proof of Heaven. I can't remember the guy's name who wrote it, but I'm sure if you just Google Proof of Heaven, you'll find it. But it's about a neuroscientist who I think he contracts meningitis, and is in a coma for a significant period of time, and then comes out of the coma and kind of talks about these vivid experiences. I don't know if experiences would be the word, but these vivid like visualizations and dreams and hallucinations and things like that he like can only really link it to a higher power, or I think he calls that feeling like it or or some he calls it so obviously things like that are really interesting, and that connection to whatever other levels of consciousness there are.
Well, that's like the expansion of human consciousness, which psychedelics, I think, is exploring more of. How to access those sort of unlocked areas of your brain and your mind, which we have no understanding of.
Well, one of the diagrams in the book is it shows like the connections from different parts of your brain, and I think
we'll post that up somewhere because that is awesome.
I think it was talking about like a part of your brain, a part of your brainstem and another part of your brain like basically switches off and stops doing its job during these experiences. So all of these different parts of your brain that don't usually communicate with each other start building connection and linking each other. And
what is it that switches off?
I can't remember. I can't remember. I'd have to have another look at the book, but
some part switches off, which allows all these other connections to opens the gates for all these other connections to just like proliferate throughout your brain.
I think like people who have been through that experience and they use the term like that's your ego disappearing and switching off for that period of time. And that's something that really interests me, that like loss of ego, that separation of ego and self, and that I guess surrender to whatever is out there, and not trying to use ego to kind of protect yourself or something like that. So I think that
it's just super interesting to explore, and it's a way. Like I think I was reading something the other day that the effects on your brain of classic psychedelics is similar to that of like lifetime meditators. So people who have meditated for 30
years.
Like have clocked 10,000 hours meditating. So know how to like get into a meditative state, just like that.
Tim Ferriss talks about that.
I think it was in Tim Ferriss's podcast with Michael Pollan. And they can enter these sort of altered states of consciousness almost. I don't know.
It's like 30 years meditating for an hour a day, or doing 4 hours with some help. Like it's, I don't know, it's an interesting one. I kind of look at it as, so we've got 5 senses, right? If we were to take away one of those senses and have never had it, like, and then to be able to explore it again, or explore it for the first time, and to like, if you'd never touched anything in your life and you didn't know that touch existed, you didn't know it was a thing, and your brain couldn't comprehend that touch was a thing, and then one day you woke up and you were able to touch things and feel things and have those experiences and have that sensation, like how different your life would be. Like it's going from, it's almost got like, if you go 4 to 5, it's going from 80% to 100%. Like it's adding this whole extra element to who you are and what you feel and what you do and how your body can experience things. And I kind of look at, and from like obviously reading and listening and hearing accounts, like it's almost like that's what the sensation they feel for that period of time.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. We were talking about how it's discovering the full potential of the human experience, and like we are potentially looking through life through a keyhole in a house with 1,000 rooms.
Yeah, good.
So why not
start exploring
open the
those
door
rooms.
and explore the rooms?
Yeah.
If there's a possibility that there is so much more to discover.
Yeah, and I don't want to keep banging on about the psychedelics thing, but obviously it's a book that and a lot of podcasts I've been listening to lately, and we've been talking about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like how interesting it is, but one of the experiments that scientists use to determine the addictiveness of certain drugs is they have I think they use mice or rats, and they have a button they can press to give them a certain substance. So for example, it might be cocaine or something like that, and in these experiments that the mice, whether they can press a button to give themselves food or they can give them a button to press the cocaine button, they'll continuously press the cocaine button until they die. Because they're like giving themselves that little burst of pleasure, and then again and again and again, and they'll go for that before all other bodily needs and functions. And the same, I think it was the same thing for heroin, and the same thing for
maybe sugar or something.
For sugar, or similar for sugar, but then like your psilocybin or your LSD, they do it once and they don't touch it. And you know that's really interesting, and it also talked about the importance of environment in something like that. So when the mice or rats or whatever it was were given a nicer cage with other mice and a nice environment with food and all of the other things, and create like a really bountiful environment, they didn't touch the cocaine. So I guess it I think it might have been Rogan that was talking about how important like environment is in all of these situations, and taking these substances or just in life, like how important the environment is, and when you're in a shitty setting and a shitty environment, how much that can impact your reaction or your like feeling around or your experiences. Which is kind of interesting. What book were you reading tonight?
So I'm reading a book called Shape-Shifting by John Perkins. He's written another book, which I know you've read, called Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
Yes, it's basically a really simple book to tell us why the world's fucked up. Yeah. So, like Economic Hitman, you can Google it, and there's a couple of like little short videos of him talking about
it's wild
how how economic hitmen have kind of ruined the world. But long story short, the US would find, and I'm sure other countries are doing it or have done it, but the US would find a country, for example Ecuador, that have significant natural resources. They'd come in and give that country a big loan for, obviously development in that area, infrastructure and things like that. And then the company, obviously, with the big loan would be unable to pay back the debt, so they'd renege on the loan, and then the US would bail them out for
significant discounts on all the resources.
So that obviously, so they bring all the oil companies in, they load up on all the oil for next to nothing. And he talks about how the Iraq war, so obviously it happened in Iran and Ecuador and a bunch of South American countries and a bunch of Middle Eastern countries, and the Iraq war is because they kind of started fighting back, and they wouldn't I can't remember what he said, but they wouldn't actually they didn't want to repay the loans and stuff like that, so they started fighting back. So then the US sent in the military rather than their jackals, as he calls them, or economic hitman. So it's pretty heavy. It talks about how capitalism, like a certain arm of capitalism, is just ruining the world. And
that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with capitalism itself is just this, like, it's almost like an extreme form of capitalism where the economic hitmen are just looking at the bottom line.
Yeah, it's
for
pretty
the sake
heavy.
Of all else,
and it's like he talks about like this, like he's obviously employed by another company, but basically doing the bidding of the CIA and stuff like that. Like it's a crazy book. Like it's one of those books where you're like, how is this guy still alive? With all the people that he's obviously talking about and all the organisations and stuff. But then it's just like, well, the book's out there, but you know,
nothing's changing.
Apart from it being on the Virtus podcast, no one really cares. Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting, but yeah, Shapeshifting, because it's his follow-up book.
Yeah, he's written a few books about shape-shifting and about like shamanism, and it's a funny book. I'm about the same, about 100 pages through. It's really it's a funny book because I'm still trying to decide whether he's using shape-shifting, as in transforming himself into another being, an animal or a tree or anything. Still trying to decide whether he's using it as a metaphor or if he's actually trying to transform himself into these things.
It's got to be a metaphor, right?
I think so, but he's visiting. It's told as a story, and he's visiting all these different shamans and priests and medicine men, and they're talking as if this is a real thing.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah.
And
you said it was
how
a bit more like storytelling, right?
Yeah. So he's just telling stories about how he's visited all these different shamans and people and these different sort of traditional cultures which believe in shape-shifting, and how it's as a force for understanding your environment and connecting with the natural world, and about how wrong today's society is and how we don't have those connections anymore.
Yeah.
And then he touches on the economic hitman, like that world, how it's such a stark,
so far disconnected
comparison. So I'm super interested to see where this goes. Like, sort of when we went on this trip, I just said to Locke, pick me a book, any book, and come with this one. So I'm coming in with no expectations really, but yeah, I'm excited. Should be good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it at some point. It's on the ever growing. I've got like a 3-tier system for books I need to read. It's like the must read, the kind of want to read, and then the was suggested, but I'll eventually get to. So it's definitely on there, and it's one of those books that I don't know, it really interests me, that I guess connection to the natural environment. Like it's cool to read things like about grounding and about getting back in touch with,
for sure,
with just nature in general. And obviously,
I think the biggest takeaway from it so far, and that I think I'm going to have, is just to, like, and this is one of my mantras for this year, is just to be present and to I guess have gratitude, appreciate the small things, and connect with the natural world, connect with people, rather than being plugged in all the time. Yeah.
I say as I check my phone, it's I don't know, it's something that like I've kind of make it an intention or a something I am lucky enough to love, so I do kind of naturally as I get outside. And
we're super lucky where we live.
The peninsula's perfect for it, and like we went for a walk today through Sydney, and
concrete jungle.
The concrete jungle, but it was cool to walk through past the Botanic Gardens and see a bunch of rad trees and stuff like that. But I think one of the things that I've been trying to do at work lately is if I'm like feeling stuck on something, or feeling like I'm not getting anything done, or feeling anxious or frustrated about a certain thing, or something that we're working on, and I feel like I'm just not getting through.
You've locked on.
I'll go out the back, which if anyone's been to Virtus, we've got a big park out the back, and I'll just go for a walk. and 15, 20 minutes later you either forget what you were worried about, or you find a solution really quick.
One of the things that Sally Ann and I would love to do is just to go for a walk down the beach, or just go down to the lookout and just hang out there, just chat, like leave our phones at home. Like it just gives you such, I don't know, like clarity maybe.
Clarity is a good word, but even if it's not, like if you don't actually figure anything out, like it just gives you a release and
it's a clear,
and like you get that endorphin rush from like feeling the sand between your toes, or like looking out of the ocean, or or anything like that. And I think that we can't, like we're all go all the time.
It's important to take a step back.
And being intentional with like leaving your phone at home. Like
so I need to do that a lot more.
It's so easy to just have it with you all the time. And I've definitely identified the last couple of months I've been way worse than I've been for probably like 6-12 months. So I have been, over the last like week or two, I've been trying to put it aside, or leave it in the glove box, or go somewhere and actually be present. And it's always going to be a battle, because phones are something that we need.
I mean, there's always things demanding our attention.
We do need for a bunch of different things.
Totally.
I think the trick is being able to be present enough and be mindful enough to just put it away for a small period of time, and then you can actually enjoy everything around you rather than just looking at your freaking phone. But in saying that, it does feel good to. People are going to hate you for that, by the way.
Got to enjoy a nice glass of red while we podcast.
just what you enjoy hearing in your ears while you listen to a podcast. But there's so many like different apps and different things trying to grab our attention now. It's just you just got to separate from it and just get outside, even if it's raining.
Just do it. Nothing better than sometimes walking in the rain.
Definitely. Good from you.
So let's finish off. What are you excited for over the next 6 months, closing out 2018?
Jesus. See, we were like one of the things we were asked to write down today was what we're excited for, and it's weird. Like I'm almost not excited for anything, if that makes it like in a good way. Like I know that we're gonna pardon me, we're gonna keep trying to grow the team and trying to grow our impact and help more people at work. Like I know I'm hopefully gonna go on a little holiday with KP. I know I'm gonna be able to read and learn and listen and do all those kind of things. Like we've got a couple of days retreat intensive with our coaches in a 3 or 4 weeks that we'll go to up in Byron and kind of escape for. Like I'm excited for like footy finals and the rest of the year for footy and like all those little things, but there's no like big magical answer. It's just I'm just excited for day to day. Like I'm excited to finish my book and start another one. Like I'm excited to send my weekly email tomorrow. Like I'm excited for whatever tomorrow's mastermind brings. Excited to fly home. And actually, what I'm really excited for? Sunday morning, I get to go to a indoor plant sale.
You're all about the indoor plants. Obsessive personality.
Yeah, but at least now I'm channeling my obsessive personality to things like indoor plants.
Something healthy.
Yeah, so I'm going to turn my office into a jungle.
Huzzah.
What about you? What are you excited for?
I like what you said about just looking for the little things.
Just your answer, mate.
Well, it's not just your answer. I'm excited for... I potentially have a study tour to Europe in November, December.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Which will be super cool. That'll be a 2-week sort of intensive unit, and then I'll do a couple of weeks just travel around that.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
Which will be cool. So, and Sally Ann will hopefully come over as well for a little bit.
Bloody better.
She better. And my brother Tim will be in Europe around the same time, so it'd be cool to catch up with him.
Nice.
Other than that, I mean, we've got the retreat in a few weeks in Byron, which I'm really looking forward to.
It's really easy to like look forward and just go like, oh, we've got all this stuff coming up, but like we've also got 22 days or something between now and the Byron stuff where we can do so much cool stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's all the little stuff that I'm really looking forward to. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into like, my little routine of hitting my minimums, and I start back at uni next week, so I'll have that constant challenge of balancing uni and work, which will be hard at the time, but I'm kind of looking forward to it as well. All that, like, one of the things I love that Drew said today was like back when he was earning $300 a week, it was hard, and now it's like it's not easier, it's harder. Yeah. But he's just gotten better and gotten more responsibility, and more able to deal with the difficult stuff and the difficult times, and I think that's kind of like, I don't know if I've spoken about it in the podcast, but my new mantra is just transcend yesterday. Yeah. So it's just about being better equipped to deal with better equipped to enjoy all the fun stuff and all the magical stuff and all the cool things that we get to do, but then better equipped to deal with all of the hardships and the roadblocks and the bumps along the way. Yeah. Because that allows you to, like, the highs are higher and like some of the lows are lower, but you get to enjoy every day for what it is. Yeah, definitely. And you're always growing. You're always growing and adapting to your changing circumstance. Like you grow to fill out the space. So like I'm looking forward to challenging ourselves a bit over the next 6 months and trying new things with Virtus, and pushing the boundaries a little bit on what we can achieve. Yeah. And I think doing that while being really intentional with like the day-to-day. Yeah. Making people better. Yeah. Which is making ourselves better. Yeah. I'm starting archery in a couple of weeks. That's cool. Yeah. Why? It's super cool. Why? Because I want to learn how to shoot a bow and arrow really accurately. Have you listened to Ted Nugent on Joe Rogan? It's very interesting. Cool. That's all I'm going to say. To finish off, to-do list. One book suggestion for everyone that's listening. Oh. Like if like any book you've ever read, I don't believe that everyone should read the same books because, you know, everyone's different. But what's the book that I'm going to change the question? What's the book that's most impacted you and that you like still remember how it made you feel or what it made you feel? So the one that immediately comes to mind is Sapiens. Nice. Because I do genuinely believe that everyone should read it. You know, he meditates 2 hours a day, an hour in the morning, an hour at night. That's awesome. Fun fact. And he said he wouldn't have been able to write Sapiens and Homo Deus, which is the sequel. So meditate, doing people. That. Meditate, y'all. Yeah, I got no time for that. Mate, 168 hours in a week. If Yuval can do it. Yeah, so that's Sapiens. 14 hours a week. Yeah. He's got 154 hour week. Including sleep. That's cool. So Sapiens. Sapiens. I just think it was so interesting. It gives me such perspective on where we are today as a society and a collective community. I just find I keep coming back to it and keep recounting the little stories and analogies that he writes about. So, yeah, cool. I think that, and saying that, it was a book that I read last month, this month. So, it's definitely at the forefront of my mind at the moment. Nice. Very good book. The Alchemist. Oh, I swear you were going to say Principles by Ray Dalio, but I had to change it up, hey? The Alchemist. Got to keep everyone guessing. Great book. I was thinking about that the other day, actually. Yeah, I think it's The Alchemist. My best way of describing it, if you haven't read it, is it's a book that you should read once a year. It's just a really, I say simple, but it's complex in a bunch of different ways. But it's like a simple story that you should stay on the path no matter what, and like keep taking step after step, left foot, right foot, to get to where you want to go. Like, it's never going to be like growth or improvement or progress is never going to be linear, but it's all about finding just experiencing things and just letting the road take its course. Because if things always happen for a reason. The right
obstacle is the way.
Yeah, the obstacle is the way. Yeah, there you go. It's good. And on that note, good from you.
It's great to chat.